Welcome to Wicksplaining. Today's topic is the Moore versus Harper Supreme Court case coming out of North Carolina. This has to do with the redistricting maps that were proposed in the legislation of North Carolina, were opposed by the Democratic Party and was then overturned by the North Carolina Supreme Court. And now we are sitting in the U.S. Supreme Court. This was approved for them to see on June 30th. It will be in their October term that they're coming up here at the end of this year, where they will sit to hear the arguments on this case. So Paul has done a little bit more research than I have on this one, so I'm going to hand it over to him to give a little bit more background information. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah. So it started out with down North Carolina, uh, South Carolina. Can't remember which one it was. What was it again? North Carolina.
It's North Carolina, yeah.
Okay. Uh, so the legislative assembly, they created the map as every state does every 10 years due to the census, because all the districts are supposed to have the same amount of people and making sure that everything is supposedly fair. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They do gerrymander those districts. Every state does it. Every legislature does it. It's just how the assemblies work. I mean, everybody wants to have a little leg up on the competition. So
Of
it
course.
happens. It's fine. I mean, it's not really
Mm-hmm.
fine, but it happens. But this time it kind of went a little crazy because they made a map. The Democrats didn't like it. They took it to court. They sued, which is fine. That's what the court's there for. Legislature does something they think it's unconstitutional, take it to court. Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional and killed their map. The
Yeah.
biggest problem I have with this is, I mean, that's all fine. You don't believe the legislature did something, and you believe what they did was unconstitutional. You take the Supreme Court. That's why we have the three branches of government. That's perfect. Great on them. But
Mm-hmm.
the Supreme Court decided in North Carolina, that is the North Carolina Supreme Court, not the U.S., decided that they are going to just hire three so-called experts and create their own map, and that's going to be the map. And it's like, whoa, no. That's not how that works.
Mm-hmm.
You ruled that it was unconstitutional. Perfect. That's fine. That's what your job is. But yet, you as the Supreme Court can't just create your own map. That is left up to the legislature. So I mean, there's just no way that you can say that it's just like any other law. I mean, it's like they if Ohio Assembly said murder is now legal, and Supreme Court said no, it's still illegal, and it comes with the death penalty. Well, why you can't just make
Yeah.
up these laws. You can't say that.
Right.
You can say yes, that's unconstitutional for you to allow murder, but
Uh-huh.
you can't determine what the law is going to say is the penalty for the whatever. Oh, murder now is illegal still, and also driving on the left side of the road is you know is
Now
100
punishable with
years,
death.
and yeah, now punishable by death. It's like, um, I don't, I didn't, I've never seen a constitution where the Supreme Court or any court for that matter can dictate
Yeah.
law.
That I mean, and I have to agree with you on that, Paul. I think that the way I've always understood it is that courts are supposed to rule on law. They're supposed to take the
Mhm.
laws that exist and determine if some action or something has happened is within that law or against that law. They're
Mhm.
not supposed to be creating laws. That's what our legislature is for. Is
Right.
their job is to create laws, and then the courts then rule on those laws to make sure that they're constitutional. They rule on those laws based on actions that happen against those laws, and and that's what their function is. Um, I've never heard of a court actually creating something like this. It seems to me though that what okay, so I was just reading as you were speaking there, Paul, and it looks like Timothy Moore, who is the Moore of this, is
Mhm.
a North Carolina House of Representatives. He's a representative for North Carolina, and he's the Speaker of the House of Representatives for the state's House of Representatives, not the
Mhm.
federal. And so he asked the Supreme Court to consider what has come to be known as the independent state legislature theory, which holds that the Constitution gives state legislatures alone the power to regulate federal elections in their states without the oversight of state courts. Moore notes that the Constitution's elections clause states that times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. So basically, what he's saying is that the Constitution says that it doesn't matter what the courts say, it doesn't matter what the federal government say, it doesn't matter what anyone else says. It's all determined by our elected officials in those state House of Representatives and state Senate to determine where times, places, and manners of holding elections. And
Yeah.
so this what they're saying, what he's saying here is this goes against the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, that anybody, a court, anything steps in and tries to circumvent what the legislature has created. So another part of this is saying that last November, the North Carolina legislature enacted a new map for congressional elections in response to the 2020 U.S. Census data. Respondent Rebecca Harper, which is the other part of this trial, Moore versus Harper, and 25 other North Carolina voters sued to in-state court to prevent the new map from taking effect, arguing that the map violated various provisions of the North Carolina Constitution and represented an unlawful partisan gerrymander. So basically, what they're saying is that they are creating a map that is partisan, not bipartisan. It is serving a purpose of one party and not the other, in the way that they've created the map, and it makes it so that another party becomes more dominant in that state. That is the argument that the Harper side of this case is taking. Now, I understand what they're saying. I don't know that I necessarily agree with them, but I understand what they're saying. And what they're trying to accomplish is, in their opinion, is a fair redistricting that allows for a more even distribution of the parties. Because we all know in
Mhm.
this country, everything is dominated by the Democrat Party and the Republican Party.
Mhm.
And for the most part, it's very hard to be elected in any position above like local level, without being represented by one of those two parties. And whether you agree with the two-party system and the way this is set up, that's for a whole nother episode of our podcast. But
Yeah.
and I could go into that for an hour as well. But what they're saying is that they want it to be bipartisan, and that this map that was created for North Carolina was what they called unlawful partisan gerrymandering.
Mhm.
Now, I'll hand it back over to Paul. Talk a little bit more.
Yeah, it just I have strong feelings about this because it was wrong for the Supreme Court of North Carolina to enact their own uh, own district, own map. You
Yeah.
can't do that as a Supreme. You can't do that as any court. Is pretty much create law that's left up
Right.
to the legislative branch of anything, state, federal, all that. But the biggest problem, the other problem here is that the argument of, well, the no court should have any say in the district maps is also incorrect, because if you if the Constitution says that there has to be equal representation of party, then it's by law, it's the court's prerogative to shut that down, to say that no, that is this map isn't correct, this map isn't constitutional.
Right.
So the argument against that's going to the Supreme Court is also flawed, because they're arguing too much. They're not arguing just the fact that the Supreme Court created a map. They're arguing that no court should have any power at all. And I mean, that's not correct either. So it's very,
Well,
I
yeah.
wish,
I mean, their power should just be limited to determine whether what has been created is constitutional, and they should not be creating laws. They should just be ruling on those laws, and
right.
that's what the more side of the argument is saying. And that's what they're saying. They said the North Carolina Supreme Court should have basically just stayed out of this because the legislature created this, and that's what the U.S. Constitution says, that they have the power to create this. It is very much detailed exactly as that. Times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. It
Mhm.
doesn't say anything beyond that. That's what it says. And so, I mean, he does have an argument, in my opinion, that the Supreme Court of North Carolina should never have even been involved in this. Kind of comes back to some other
Well,
cases that we've seen overturned recently, like Roe versus Wade, and some other things that are being overturned, where the courts are going back and looking at previous rulings and saying, no, the court shouldn't have never even been involved in this decision in the first place because it has nothing to do with the Constitution. So
but that's not 100% correct either, because yes, the court can be involved when that state has a constitution, and the constitution
mhm,
dictates what that legislature is allowed to do. And every state has something in the constitution, in their state constitution or state laws at least, that say,
mhm,
you can't gerrymander your districts. So that
right,
part of it should still go to the court and be, hey, yes, they brought they if you look at the map, it is gerrymandering. So therefore, that map is struck down by the
mhm,
court. The part
right,
that is gone too far is the court creating its own map. So it's one of those
right,
things. It's
right.
like you
No, I
can't,
agree with that too. Yeah.
and then the court does have to be involved to that extent of,
Mhm.
if you do draw a strict Republican map, then yes, the court should have the right to shut it down. But on the other hand of that, it just goes back to all these courts and legislatures and everything that, it's the fight between the two branches. And it shouldn't be. It should be, you created a law, okay, now somebody is not happy with that and they take it to court. And that's the way our
Right.
government was always built on. It was always supposed to
Mhm.
be this way, and therefore, just having the Supreme Court, the case before the Supreme Court, I just feel is going to be argued incorrectly. Now they're probably going to get shut down, and the Supreme Court of North Carolina's map is probably going to stay because of the fact that what they're arguing is, they're going to end up arguing, the court should have no jurisdiction at all, when in fact they have to, because the court has to rule on what the legislature did is constitutional to that state. And if you go to the
Right.
Supreme Court and argue that the court has no validity here at all, then you're going to get shut down. You're going to get This is not going to go the way that they're wanting it to go, because the court does have validity. They do have the right and the constitutionality to say this map goes against North Carolina's constitution.
Yeah,
So
and I agree with that too. Yes, I mean they have the right to rule on the actual law and what is
yes.
placed into place by the legislature to determine if it is against the state constitution. Now
Mhm.
they don't rule on matters of the U.S. Constitution. They're ruling on matters of the
Right.
state constitution.
Right.
So what they're doing is they're taking this and saying that according to the U.S. Constitution, that the legislature of the state is the only one who has power to make these decisions. So, and we all know that states can make their own laws, but states cannot make their own laws that go against the federal laws. So, they can make their own constitution, but they can't make a
Right.
constitution that says something different than what the US Constitution says. They
Mhm.
can make additions to it to make
Right.
laws more strict or to make them, but they can't make a law less strict than what the federal side says. So
Mhm.
therefore, what they're saying is the U.S. Constitution says the state legislature makes this decision, not the court, and therefore they cannot go in and say that what the state legislature created is wrong, throw it out, unless it actually is against the state
Right.
constitution,
Right.
and then create their own law in the court instead of going. What should have happened at that point was if the state Supreme Court ruled that that was against the state constitution, they should have thrown it out and it should have gone back to the legislature to
Yes.
create something else.
Yes.
And then it would once that's created, the court can look at it again, and I mean it can go back and forth for a long time. But that's the way our system is created. Is it's supposed to do that. It's supposed to go back and forth for years. Sometimes it can, and so another thing I just wanted to comment on real quick was, in case somebody doesn't know what gerrymandering is. Gerrymandering is manipulating the boundaries of an electoral constituency so as to favor one party or class. So basically what it is just taking those areas and drawing the map so that you end up with more Republicans or more Democrats in one area than you do in another, and therefore getting the candidate or the representative in that area that you want based on the fact that they're either Democrat or they're Republican.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with a guy named Jerry.
No, there's no. I don't know who Jerry Mander is and why it's named after him, but
Well, I got two more points on this. One is
you only get one.
Yeah, one and a quarter. One and a quarter.
One and a quarter.
What actually brought this to my attention was TikTok. With all things, because people get on TikTok and lose their minds about things that they seriously, most of the time, they seriously have no understanding of it at all.
Yes. Oh, it's hilarious to me when they have what they're spouting is completely incorrect, and they're just going off about it, and then you're done. You're like, no, you were actually wrong in everything you said.
Yes. Besides the topic is the only thing that's actually is out there. Everything else was just complete and utter, I don't know. I mean, just idiotic stupidity. So the woman was losing her mind over saying, all this is going to do is allow Republican state legislatures to just rule on all elections from now on. And it's like, that's actually what the Constitution says. And she went on to say, well, rule on all federal elections. I'm sorry, but there actually is no such thing as a federal election. There isn't.
Right.
We have all states elect the officials that go to Washington. The only, I guess
there's only two people that are not represented by a specific state, and that's the president and the vice president. And everybody else is represented by a specific state.
Yes, I guess I can't say there is no federal election. The only federal election is the Electoral College getting together and electing the president and the vice president. Other than that, all of these are just state elections. They are not federal. There is not this, all 50 states, or all the U.S., no matter what state you are in, electing a representative. No, I mean, I don't get to choose New York's representatives. I mean, I kind of wish I did sometimes, but no, that's theirs.
Or California.
California, Nancy got
I would have thrown out. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I would have thrown out Nancy a long time ago.
Girl, I mean, what
is she, like 112 now?
At least. I mean, that was probably years ago. But she just
back at the turn of the century.
She's worth like $40 million. One, get your husband a damn driver.
Oh, more than that. 114 million.
114. Get your husband a driver. I mean, he older than hell too. He's like 250. He's like 250.
You're quoting that guy on TikTok who went on that rant about being a Democrat. I know you are.
I've been saying for years, though. I mean, all these damn NFL players that are worth millions of dollars and they get caught drunk driving. Like, are you stupid?
Yeah.
You could literally buy an Uber. You could buy somebody to drive you around. I mean, hell. Yeah. You have so many fans as an NFL player. Somebody probably drive you around for damn free, just to be next to you. I
Just
mean,
to be in the same car with you, yeah.
right. And yet you
Yeah.
running around here, drunk driving is stupid. I was just ignorance. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what brought me to this to my attention was this woman that said these states are going to have a jurisdiction over all federal elections, and I'm like, you don't understand how election works then, because there
Right?
isn't. There's not federal elections. These are all state elections, and we send
Yeah.
them to DC. It's not. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, we need to go back
So,
to some old styles of elections. And number
oh
one, we need to go
man,
back to the way it was, the way the president and the vice president were elected at the very beginning, where the guy who
yeah,
got the most votes was president, and the guy who got the second most votes was vice president. You didn't
hmm,
have, I select this person as my vice president. No, you didn't have
right,
that crap.
right,
It was number one and number two were number one and number
hmm,
two. I mean, it's
yep,
just how it worked. And and then we also need to go back to the way that the states were, they funded their people, they represented their
yeah,
people. They sent their guy to DC just for the sessions. You didn't live in DC as a
right,
politician. You
right,
lived in your state. If you
yes,
were House of Representatives from Ohio, you lived in Ohio,
yes,
and you went to DC when it was time for session, was time to
hmm,
vote and stuff. And then when your voting session was over, you came back to Ohio and
hmm,
you did your job. We need to go back to the way it was originally done.
hmm,
But I digress. That's not what this is about. We
right.
we the Chuck and Paul show tends to go on tangents.
Oh
If
yeah.
anybody who's listened to us before, we know we never stay on topic. So it's like, but still, I mean, it's just this whole thing is kind of, in my opinion, it's another example of the one party that likes to say everything is unfair, anything that goes that just smells slightly like it's not going to be a win for them. They are completely throwing a fit, trying to get
Oh yeah.
things thrown out. But
Yeah.
if it has any kind of tinge in their direction, oh,
Yep.
they're never going to say a word. They're
Oh
never
yeah.
going to say a word about that. It's not
Nope.
about fairness. It's about them winning, and
Yes.
it's like, so, when you're to come to this court, to come to this trial and say that this is about creating a fair and free election, it's
Hmm.
it's BS, in my opinion, because Democrats never look for anything to be fair and free. They look to win, and it doesn't matter
Well,
how they do it. They do it in any way possible, and it just comes back to, they
that's
don't,
everybody in power.
that's a
That's
bunch of
everybody.
crybabies.
That's no. That's everybody in power. Just trying to win and stay
Yeah,
winning. I mean, I
yeah,
hell that's 3/4 of the damn Republicans in the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate too. I mean, they don't care
yeah.
about fair. They don't care. They care about
Well,
who's paying me today, and what am I saying is going based off of who's paying me today. But I'll
there may
jump on
be
the other
you may be
bandwagon.
true, but that may be true, but still, in the same respect, they're a little bit more quiet about it. They're not screaming from the rooftops and yelling in people's faces like liberals
True.
do. You know,
I mean, yeah, but I mean, it's all BS anyhow. But yeah, I mean, But my second point was uh, Ohio. Ohio's district maps still are not completed because the Supreme Court has thrown
no,
out every single one of them that they've made.
yep,
Has the Ohio Supreme Court created one? No, it's not their job.
no,
That's the point
right,
of this whole thing. It's not their
yep,
job. They
no,
Now they threw it out. That's fine. That's perfect. That's what their job is, to
yeah,
throw it out if it's gerrymandering. But it's not their job to create one. And we still don't have.
no,
We actually have to have a second freaking primary here on August 2nd, just to get our state and local or state representatives elected, because we couldn't do them in the primary in May because the U.S. the Supreme Court in Ohio threw out the map.
yeah,
So I mean, it's so stupid, just so
mm-hmm,
ignorant, and I mean these everybody wants to win, and I think
mm-hmm,
the fix for this, the actual fix for this gerrymandering crap and this district crap is to get rid of two-party system. That is going to be the fix. But
Well,
that's not.
and go to a strictly popular vote system too, where you just count up the votes and whoever has the most votes wins. And
Well,
it's
yeah,
it's
that's part that would be my part of getting rid of two-party system. That would actually get rid of the two-party system. Is just strict
right.
vote
Yeah,
and the
and then
signatures and stuff.
and don't even and why do we worry about drawing districts in the map and stuff? Why don't we just say that, okay, we have two senators from each state, okay, you all run for to be a senator in that state, and whoever gets the number one votes, that's one of them, and whoever gets the second most votes, there's the second one. You get how many House of Representatives for each state, whoever gets the most votes on down to whoever gets the whatever it is number 15, 20, whatever, those guys
Well,
are the ones that are in the House. I mean,
I got to disagree on that one because
I knew you would.
then,
I knew you would.
well, then all of our representatives in Ohio are going to be from Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. That's they're all going to be from there. We're not going to have a local representative from the Dayton area. We're going to have Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati representing our state in the United States Congress. That's all it would be.
Mhm.
New York would have just everybody be from New York City. California,
Mhm.
pick 5 big cities out there, and that's where all your representatives are going to be, because they're just going to sit there and get people to go vote. Because why would you go anywhere else? Why do you have to worry about that rural area out and outside of the big cities? You don't care about them anymore because they can't get you out of office anyhow. So that's
Well,
why the districts are necessary.
I hear what you're saying, but if you got rid of the two-party system and it was just strictly on a candidate's, you
Mhm.
know, metal, their abilities, their resume, then you also run into the rural areas still have more people collectively than the large cities do. So, if you're talking about, take out just those three hot spots in Ohio and you add up everybody else in the entire state, it's still more people than the three hot spots have together. So you're still going to run into situations where people outside of those big cities still have a chance, given that there's not a
Not that
two-party system.
much.
You're not a Republican or a Democrat. You
I
are
know,
a
but
person running for this house, running for this
then
Senate, running for
if
this
you
whatever.
got enough money, then all you have to do is have three campaigns going. Is Columbus, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. And once you get all them people voting, you don't have to worry about nobody else. That's all you have to worry about. So I mean, in that case, it would probably I unfortunately it would probably go more Democrat than it would Republican because of the
Mhm.
people of the center, of the populist vote. The unfortunately rural America would just not show up to vote. Well, the big city's going to take care of it. The big city's going to do it. What's my
I
vote
don't
going to
know.
count? Hell, we got people
A
that
lot of us,
don't care, don't believe their vote counts anyhow.
well, sometimes I understand that. I mean, there's been times where I've been like, I don't know how much my vote actually counts either. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just one of those things where I still do it because I feel like you don't have the right to complain if you don't vote. You don't have
Yeah.
the right to say anything about the way that the system is put together
Right.
if you're not going out and voting. And that's always the question I like to have for people that especially these people on TikTok. They get on there and they complain and complain and complain.
Mm-hmm.
And I always want to go on there. I just want to go on there and ask them, did you even vote in the last
Right.
election? Did you even vote in your primaries? Did you vote in your local elections? Did you show up for anything other than the presidential election? And for
Mm-hmm.
the most part, I bet
No.
you're going to get no's. You're going to get no's.
Right.
They didn't vote. And so it's like, you want to tell them, just go sit down then, and just
Yeah.
go sit down and shut up. Because if you're not going to participate in the system, then you have no right to complain about it.
Yeah.
That's my standing on it. And I think that's a lot of people standing on it too. If you want to complain, participate in the system at least. At least then you've given yourself a voice, a reason to be there.
Right.
But there's too many people out there that just want to, excuse my language, bitch about what's going on. They just want to
Yes.
say something, they just want to be heard. And it's one of those things where it's like, at least do something to try to change it.
Hmm.
Do something, I don't care what your stance is. I don't care if you're a Democrat, a liberal, or if you're a Republican, a conservative, if you're an independent, or you're a, purple people eater party. I don't care. As long as you are participating in the system, you
Yes.
can say something about it. You are at least putting your voice out there. You're putting your vote in, and
Hmm.
you're at least making it count. Okay, it may only be one vote, but at least that one vote went in there and it counted.
Yeah.
In those millions of votes. And I think that's where a lot of people feel like their vote doesn't count, is because they're one vote. And when it gets to like the presidential election, you're talking 100 million votes or 50 million
Oh
votes or
yeah.
20 million votes. You're
Hmm.
talking such large amounts that I do understand to a certain extent why they feel like their vote doesn't count, because one among 50 million people,
Yeah.
it's hard to think that and this guy won the election, and he won it by 4 million votes, and you're like, well, my one little vote didn't do shit for that. He
Right.
won that by 4 million votes.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I do understand that to a certain extent, but if you're not participating, then just go sit down and drink a beer and shut up. You
Right.
know. So that's my feeling on it.
Yeah, I mean, I get the gerrymandering, and I for sure want the courts to rule on constitutionalities of everything. That is
Yes.
what makes America great. That nobody can, run the world. I mean, we have to have our checks and
Right.
balances, and that's great. But
Right.
I just feel like this this specific argument that going to the Supreme Court is going to get argued the wrong way, and therefore it's going to be a federal
Hmm.
Supreme Court, uh, judgment that, oh well, no, the courts can do this, and it's like, well, no, they really can't, except for you argued the wrong points. And then that's where, that's the other thing about these crazy people out there just yelling and screaming is, well, the Supreme Court can only rule on the case that is brought before them. If you,
Right.
even though that your case is right, this Supreme Court in North Carolina should never have made the map. If that's not your argument, then
Yep.
the U.S. Supreme Court can't do anything about it.
No.
They can't make law. They have to judge the argument, and
Yep.
therefore, if you we if you know if the Republicans go up there and screw it up and argue the wrong thing, which has happened many times in the past, then
Yep.
it's going to be precedent. And it's like,
Yep.
well, no, they didn't say that. They actually said that your argument was crap, and therefore
Well,
you got thrown out.
yeah. I mean, the other option is I believe this is the case. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I believe the Supreme Court can throw the case out and just not rule on it at all if they
They
decide
can.
that if it doesn't warrant
Mhm.
their ruling to be involved, or they feel like the argument isn't the correct argument, or the way it's being argued doesn't bring any constitutionality into it,
Mhm.
then they can just say, okay, well, this has no bearing on us. There's not a matter for the U.S. Supreme Court to be involved, and therefore they can just say, "Now we're not going to touch it. We're just going to let it go." Now the likelihood is they would have done that prior to allowing it to get onto their docket for October. They would have thrown it out before then. Um,
Right.
so the fact that they've got it on in the docket for the term in October tells me
Mhm.
that they've decided that there's a reason for them to look at this, and to have a ruling in it. So we'll just have to see what happens, and maybe we'll get together after they make a ruling on this, and do
Yeah.
another episode just to talk about what that is, and how that's going
Yeah.
to affect the North Carolina and the rest of the country.
Yeah, sometime next year
So
when they rule on it, because that's how long Supreme Court rulings take.
oh,
Never
right.
really understood that.
Well,
You heard the argument. Then it's 5 months later when you actually rule on. I mean,
well,
I'm
well,
sorry, but
they didn't take him that long to rule on it. It just took him that long to release it. It's
I
like Roe
mean,
v. Wade.
and
They held on to Roe v. Wade for a long time.
I kind of get that, but damn, some of these Supreme Court justices are old, man. They're gonna die before the damn decision even gets released. I mean, I'm sorry.
Well, well,
I mean, we're
some of
getting
them
some
are.
younger ones in there, but still, I mean,
Well, they're retiring. Some of them are deciding to retire. Just like what's his name, Breyer, whatever,
yeah,
just
well,
retired.
yeah,
Uh, and
yeah.
now
But
we
by the
got.
time they retire, though, they're half senile and stupid anyhow. It's like, damn, like, whew. I mean, I
Yeah,
get it.
yeah,
You want somebody with a real good, knowledge of the law and been practicing for a while, or was been a judge for a while to be on the Supreme Court. I get that. But man, we put some old people on the Supreme Court, and everybody out there yelling about how we don't want representatives being old. Our highest law, highest jury of the land is average age of what, 65? I mean, it's like,
I don't know. I
damn.
mean, there's some younger guy. There's some younger people
I mean, now I
on the
guess,
Supreme Court
yeah,
right
there's
now.
a few
I mean,
younger ones,
there's
but
a few in the 50s. There's the new one
mhm.
that just got in there, Jackson. She's 51. There is Gorsuch, which is 54. There's
Mhm.
Kavanaugh, who's 57, and there's Barrett, who's 50.
Okay.
Um, Kagan is 62. Sotomayor is 68. Alito is 72. Roberts
Mhm.
is 67, and Clarence Thomas is 74. He's the oldest one, I think, on the court right now.
7,400. I mean, that dude
Yeah,
is old.
he was appointed by by Daddy Bush in '91. He's been on the court for 30 years now.
Yeah,
Yep,
30
he's the
years.
longest sitting one right now. Yeah, so yeah,
I
even
mean, don't get me wrong, he does a good job, but
yeah,
it is they do get old, and
yeah,
that's another thing. I don't know. I don't like
yeah. Well, I mean,
age caps, but I do understand why some people would want age caps on all of our government.
yeah. I get it to a certain extent, but it's also going to come back to bite you if you start trying to do that because,
Oh yeah.
I mean, Trump's going to try to run again in 2024 and he's going to be
Hmm.
nearly 80 years old at that point,
Yeah.
and so, it's going to be one of those things where it's like, where do you put that cap? As far as age, I don't know that it should be based on age. I think it should be based on mental capacity, mental ability to perform the job. And some people are still very, very sharp at 80 and some people are not.
Yeah.
Some people have lost a few steps by 80 years old. Some people are still very sharp and still ready to still able to do all those things at that
Right.
age. So it's to put an age cap on it itself. I don't agree with necessarily. I think there should be some kind of mental acuity test or something that goes into that
I
that
don't like
determines
that
if
either,
they're able to handle it.
because
You know.
who is determining that at that point?
Well,
It's one of those
you'd
things.
have to be it'd have to be something that's bipartisan, that's for sure, which is hard to find in this country
Which,
anyway.
yeah,
So,
we haven't had that in a good like 25 years. So,
oh well,
yeah, that's not
probably
going to
longer than
happen.
that.
Probably.
So,
We
yeah, I
have
mean,
great
Trump,
minds. We have great
yeah,
minds. 77 years old. What was Thomas? Say you said 77 or something like that. 78. I
Clarence
mean,
Thomas 74.
74. All right, 74 years
74, and he's
old.
the oldest, one there in the court right
Great
now.
mind. He
Yeah,
writes these great opinions and everything. And then
yeah,
we have
yeah.
other people that can't stand up on a bicycle. I mean, it's just
Well, that's our
I
president of the United
age.
States.
Wasn't going to say it, but let's go ahead and
Oh
say
my
it.
God,
And
I can't.
can't walk up a flight of stairs. I mean, I
No, no.
I
I just
just
can't believe. I just can't believe. And
it's
it's hard. It's hard to just even fathom something like that happening in another country.
oh
Somebody with that
no,
little ability to put
no.
a sentence together. Being in power,
Yeah.
In today's world, number one, I mean, because, you go back, 50 to 100 years and further, you still had some monarchies. You still had people that took
Hmm.
office or positions of power just based on the fact that they were born in a certain family. So
Yeah.
there, you did run into situations where people just weren't mentally competent to do the job,
Yeah,
and
but
you had that a lot in history.
you
But
never put him
you
out
know,
there on stage. You didn't bring him out and portray him
I
around.
mean,
Here's our
if
king. He fell down again.
yeah,
Damn it.
yeah,
Go pick
well,
him up. Like, no, I
well,
mean,
yeah,
you hit him in
I
the
mean,
corner and said, "Yeah,
there's
he's over there."
yeah. Don't talk to him. Don't talk to him. Just
Right.
leave him there. Yeah. And
Only
so
the
yeah,
advisors can talk to him.
right, right. And they weren't talking to him either. They were making the decisions.
Right. But I mean, it's just it's crazy, and these courts, they should rule, they should be able to do that. And our legal system is good and bad at the same time.
Hmm.
Don't get me wrong, not everything is 100% great, but it's just these age caps that hey, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm completely against age caps, but every other day or so I'm looking at the TV and I'm like, God, I almost could. This person talking right now is convincing me of an age cap, and they're not even talking
Hmm.
about an age cap. They're just trying to speak.
Yeah.
Because
But
Nancy, put the bottle down before you go in front
oh,
of the damn camera. All right, just
yeah,
just
I don't
just
know if
just
Nancy knows
drink
how to put the bottle
after.
down.
Drink after. All right, you're like I'm not sure she knows where she is half the time.
Right.
But damn, it's just crazy. But yeah, I
But
just think it'll be a good case if they argue the correct case correctly.
we'll see. Well, I mean, like I said, we'll have to get together after this and try to do another
Yep.
episode once they rule on it to see what the ruling is and how it affects everything. So, but you have any closing remarks, Paul?
I'm good. I think I BS'd enough on this one.
I feel I've probably done the same. We went on a couple of different tangents there, and
Right?
so trying to bring it back to the original topic, at least, which is the gerrymandering and the idea that redistricting is trying to supposedly, and because I don't want to say that it is not, but it's supposedly trying to be partisan and not bipartisan, which it should be. It should be based on populations and not what political party dominates that population area.
Right.
And so, I do understand needing to redraw the districts basically based on population and the census from 2020 saying that, there's too many people in this area, or there's too many people in that area, and
Yeah.
saying that, we can't have, real lopsided districts, where one district has a million more people than another,
Oh
that kind
yeah.
of thing. So things do need to be redone, but you got to make sure that it's done solely based on the population areas and not based on what party dominates that area. So, that's where there does need to be some oversight on it. I think that honestly, I think that this should be something that's probably done by a third party, company or something that just basically does it by some kind of computer model, or it's just based on population completely, no possibility of entering in, political party or affiliation of any sort, and just taking the districts and going, okay, how do we try to even out each one of these districts throughout the state so that we try to get them as even as possible. I know they're not going to be exact. It's not like we can have the exact same number of people in each district, but
Mm.
within a certain threshold, maybe 100,000 or 200,000 people or something like that. Especially in the larger states where there's large populations of people, it's going to be hard to do that. So I see that I'm
Mm.
putting Paul to sleep here. He's
Oh no,
yawning and
no,
stuff. So
just
so
long weekend.
so so anyway, we'll wrap this up, and like I said, we'll get together after the ruling on this case and do an episode based on what the ruling is and what the
Yep.
effects are on the rest of the country.
Next year
And
sometime.
we'll see what that yeah, especially since the fact that the Supreme Court always takes forever to make a decision on their
Oh
stuff,
yeah.
or at least to release it. So anyway, That's our episode for today. If you have any questions or concerns, please email us at wicks.splaining@gmail.com. And thank you for listening.
Nancy, put the bottle down.